Hello everyone, welcome to today's session where we're going to look at the extract from this long narrative poem Sohrab and Rustam by Matthew Arnold. This is a blank verse poem which consists of 892 lines, and the extract prescribed in your syllabus is from line number 838 to 892. This poem by Arnold is actually his attempt at handling Oriental themes. As in this poem, Arnold has recreated the episode from the epic Shahnameh, which is originally written by Persian poet Ferdowsi. And since the text which is prescribed in your syllabus is a fragmented portion of this long poem or this long story of Sohrab and Rustam, so to get the sense of that text, which is just a fragmented portion, we need to understand the storyline of this poem or this whole narrative Sohrab and Rustam. So the story of Sohrab and Rustam in brief is thus: Rustam, the legendary warrior of Persia, during his wanderings he married Tahmina. Tahmina is the daughter of the king of Samangan, and after some time when Rustam had to leave Samangan, then he left pregnant Tahmina with the instructions that in case if the child would be son, then she should mark the impression of his griffin at his arm, and the griffin was Rustam's emblem. So with these words Rustam departed, and after some time when Tahmina gave birth to a lovely boy, whom they called Sohrab, because the moment he came to the world he just smiled at it, so that's why it was named Sohrab. And this child Sohrab, when he grew up, he also became very mighty and valorous as his father, and he was also having the strong desire to meet his father Rustam, about whom he knew from, or about whom he learnt from his mother Tahmina. So Sohrab has grown up and he has this quest to meet his father, and with this quest in his heart and mind he joined the Tartars army. And this long narrative also begins at this point when the powerful armies of the Tartars and the Persians encamped along the banks of the Oxus river. And why they encamped? Because due to their impending battle. And now you have an idea that the Tartars, in the Tartars army there is Sohrab, and in Persians the Rustam is the chieftain of Persian army. So both are now at the opposite, but both were unaware about each other. So now, but Sohrab knew that his father was a chieftain, or his father was a very great warrior from Persia. So he hit upon a plan, he came up with the plan, and his idea was that if with a single combat, if he challenged a single combat to Persians, then after his victory, after this fight, his fame would reach the ears of his father Rustam, and in this way he would be able to recognize his son, and in this way Sohrab can meet his father. So this was his plan, and he challenged Persians. But ironically, Persians had no suitable warrior to confront the warrior like Sohrab, except Rustam. And Rustam was not ready for this fight. But then also, anyhow, they persuaded Rustam, and Rustam also gave his consent on the condition that he would fight incognito. Incognito means he would fight in disguise, that nobody will come to know that who the warrior is coming from the Persian side, or from Persia or Persian army. So in this way this single combat took place, and this single combat began, and during this it was very fierce, and during this seemingly never ending combat, the moment when Rustam lifted his spear and shouted his name Rustam, it is that moment when, after hearing this cry of Rustam from his opposite warrior, Sohrab, when he listened this cry, Rustam, he became bewildered, and he just stood defenseless. And the very next moment, Rustam transfixed Sohrab with his spear. Rustam pierced the body of Sohrab with his spear. But as you know that now at this moment, it is revealed to Sohrab that with the ferocious warrior with whom he was combating is none other than his father, whom he was searching from, as from the moment or from the day he got in his proper conscious. So it was revealed to Sohrab that Rustam was that the man with whom he was fighting is his father. So in order to convince Rustam that Sohrab that he is his son, he bared his arm in order to show that sign which was pricked on his arm, which was griffin, Rustam's emblem. And after watching that sign, Rustam got convinced, and he believed that the warrior whom he had now only fatally wounded is his long lost son. So this was a moment of shock or stunned, and as at this horrible discovery, Rustam just cried, "Oh boy, thy father," and fainted. But after some time, he brought back into consciousness with the Sohrab's KRSS, when Sohrab KRSS him. So at this point, when Sohrab is mortally wounded and in the embrace of Rustam, it is at this point the text prescribed in your syllabus is going to start, and we are going to discuss now that text. And here I would like to add that you would have an idea, I hope, that the theme of this poem is highly tragic, where the poet is trying to portray the sad and gloomy situation which has occurred unexpectedly. So let's begin the text. I'm reading it. He spoke, and Sohrab smiled on him. And as you know that the scene is beginning at this pathetic situation where Sohrab is mortally wounded, lying on the ground in the embrace of distressed and broken Rustam. And he spoke. Here he is for Rustam. When Rustam had finished his speech, he spoke, and Sohrab smiled at him and took the spear and drew it from his side. And after giving a little smile to his father, took the spear, by taking the hold of the spear, he just pulled it out from his side, because as the spear was which was pierced in his body, he took out the spear. Sohrab took out the spear which was in his body, drew it from his side, and eased his wounds imperious anguish. And why he did so? Why he pulled out that spear? He pulled out that spear in order to ease the excruciating pain he was having by that wound. But as he took out that spear, the incessant flow of blood started coming out. His wounds imperious anguish, and he eased his wounds imperious anguish. He eased his excruciating terrible pain. But the blood came welling from the open gash. But the blood came out, bubbling out with bubbling out from that open deep cut from the body of Sohrab, and life flowed with the stream. And it was looking like the life was flying out from with that stream of blood. Life of Sohrab was flying out. All down his cold white side the crimson torrent ran, and as that crimson dark red color, the gush of that dark red color was flowing down and making his body cold and white, making his side cold, as it was bloodless now, cold and white. It was becoming bloodless due to that excessive flow of excessive draining of blood from his body. It has become dim in color now, and soiled, and it has become dirtied, as the body was lying on the ground and it was in the touch of sand with the blood as and the blood was flowing out from the body, so the body of Sohrab has become now dirtied, soiled. And Arnold has compared this soiled body, this dim white side soiled body of Sohrab with the white colored violet flowers. How he has compared, let's see. Like the soiled tissue of white violets left, freshly gathered on their native bank. So, the body of the Sohrab was looking like the tarnished fabric of white colored violet flowers. Like the violet flowers, when they become tarnished, how they become tarnished? When they were left, when they got left by children. I have to read these lines. See the screen. Left freshly gathered on their native bank by children, whom their nurses call with haste indoors from the sun's eye. Now, those white colored violet flowers were left on the sand, and which were now only plucked, freshly gathered. Now only they were plucked. They had been plucked from their native bank where they had bloomed, the native land from where they had bloomed earlier, and from where there they have been plucked by the children, and now the children left those white colored flowers in the sand, because the children have been called by their nurses in a very hurry, at very suddenly, or in a very haste. Nurses called the children indoors. And why nurses called the children indoors? To save them, to prevent them from the glaring heat of the sun, indoors from the sun's eye. So in this way, as the white flowers left by the children, and as they become tarnished, in the same way Sohrab's body has become soiled, dirtied and tarnished. So this is a simile, very vivid imagery given by Arnold to describe the situation or the condition of Sohrab. I want to read it again, this last 4 lines. Like the soiled tissue of white violets left freshly gathered on their native bank by children whom their nurses call with haste indoors from the sun's eye. Next, his head drooped low. Whose head? Sohrab's head. And now, as he has become so weak that his head was falling down on the ground, very low his head was falling down. His limbs grew slack, and his limbs were growing or losing their firmness. They were growing, they were getting limp, they were losing their firmness and motionless. They were becoming without movement, white, bloodless. He lay, he was lying on the ground, white, with eyes closed, as since he now he had no stamina or strength in his body, and due to the excessive weakness he shut his eyes, but still there was a sign of life in his body. And how can it can be observed? In the next lines it is stated, only when heavy gasps, deep heavy gasps, quivering through all his frame. And it was the state when only the life-giving air was inhaled and exhaled, and due to that inspiration and expiration of the life-giving air, there was a sudden movement, and it was giving a quiver, a flicker to the entire body of Sohrab. And these gasps, these spasmodic movements were giving Sohrab a sudden jerk, and this jerk was making his eyes open at sudden, convulsively, very in a very convulsive way, very convulsively he was brought back to life with that life-giving breath. Convulsed him back to life, he opened them, and at last he fixed his eyes. He fixed them feebly, pathetically and weakly on his father's face. So now this was the state when there was a little sign in the body of Sohrab, little sign of life in Sohrab's body. Next, till now all strength was ebbed, and by now all the strength was drained away and was seeped away from his body, and from his limbs. All the strength was drained away from his limbs. Unwillingly, the spirit fled away. And the spirit, which was unwilling to leave Sohrab's body, it has to flew away now. Now, why the spirit is unwilling? We can find the answer in the next two lines. Unwillingly, the spirit fled away, regretting the warm mansion which it left, and youth and bloom and this delightful world. The spirit was unwilling because it was compelled now. It was compelled for leaving this delightful world and the warm mansion. That warm mansion, here warm mansion, warm house. Warm house is for Sohrab's body. Now the spirit of Sohrab has to leave her, or leave its warm house, and it was compelled to leave that warm house, which was why it was regretting, the spirit was feeling sorry for leaving that warm house, because that house was now in its prime. It was in its full blooming of youth, and the spirit had to leave that house which was in its youth, which was in its full prime. So that's why spirit was unwilling, but it has to flew away to the next world. And in this way Sohrab took his last breath. So and with this last line, I'm going to wind up this session. The rest of the part we will complete in the following session. And with this final note, it can be stated, on the final note we can say that the probable message we can take from this narrative is that the fate is all powerful, and it is beyond the capacities of a common individual to know the fate, to know that how the fate works. So this message can be taken from this narrative, which can be a probable message, and many other messages can be derived out. Still there is a portion which is left, which we will complete in the following session, and I look forward to see you in that session. So thank you for now.